We're going to start again at the bottom of Kufiyud Beis. We did a little bit. We'll recap, get into the sugya, and hopefully we'll be able to make good progress today. Yeah. So we started talking about the difference, right, between Yemos HaMashiach and Olam Haba, right? So we said that Yemos HaMashiach are shaykh to Olam Hazeh, and that's something that the Nevi'im could prophesy, they could capture because it's something that can be seen, right? But Olam Haba is beyond the range of the Nevi'im. There's, of course, the Ayin L'Ra, so nobody can even see it, and it's something which is completely separate and other than Olam Hazeh. And the idea is that as we'll start at the bottom of Kufiyud Beis, Yemos HaMashiach mechuvonim le'olam haba. Yemos HaMashiach are directed, right, and focused and bring us to the direction of Olam Haba. Amnam, he says, Omek metziutam shel Yemos HaMashiach uliyot nekudat chibur v'ashaka bein Olam Hazeh Olam Haba. This is what the idea of Yemos HaMashiach is meant to be, the transition point, the point where they touch each other, right? Olam Hazeh and Olam Haba touch, but it's a kind of a middle ground which partakes of both. It comes from Olam Hazeh, but it draws from Olam Haba. U'mataratam lahamid et Olam Hazeh liot mechuvan kulo letachlito b'Olam Haba. The purpose of Yemos HaMashiach is to bring the world to a state where it is focused and directed towards to the tachlis of Olam Haba. Okay, in order to create a transition point between Olam Hazeh and Olam Haba. V'afladat Shmuel l'sfir le'shein bein Yemos HaMashiach Olam Haba elo shiba malchus bilvad. And even according to Shmuel, who says that there are not going to be any miraculous transformations in Yemos HaMashiach, ein bein Yemos HaMashiach, right? Elo Olam Haba elo shiba malchus bilvad. Mevur b'maral, right? She'akavana she'kulam yiyu tzadikim. Everybody's going to be tzadikim. Ve'olam yiyeh mechuvan legamri Olam Haba. Right? Shalom, David. How are you doing? Okay. Ella. Okay. If somebody wants to take a picture, I don't think David has a book. Is that correct, David? If somebody wants to take a picture of the book,
I'm not sure if I have it. Yeah, according to the recording that I heard, I have a sefer by Rabbi Moshe Shapiro, Emunah, and something that I don't know if that's it.
Yeah, probably not. Okay, anybody who can take a picture of it and send it to David, it would be a big
Thank
mitzvah.
you. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Whatever.
Somebody can do it? Somebody's taking care of it? Somebody knows how to do it?
If not, I'm listening.
I'll try. Give me a couple seconds.
Okay.
The question is how.
Anyway, David, can you put your email address in the chat? I'll email it to you.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Everybody's on board here? Okay. Okay.
I really prefer not to bother everybody.
Okay. Okay. If you can't put your email address, then fine. Ella, shelo yeh hanaga shel nes v'lo yishtanu ativim. In other words, there will definitely be changes. Sometimes I've run into some people who say, yeah, well, there's not going to be, Yemos HaMashiach is going to be just like Olam Haba. Right? But it's not, excuse me, Yemos HaMashiach is going to be like Olam Hazeh. It's just that we're not going to be under the domination of the foreign powers, etc. But Rosh says, though, that's not true. Right? There will certainly be tremendous differences in the relationship of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to the world, and people are going to be tzaddikim, right? V'davar barur, he says, this is what we read, right? Shebimot HaMashiach, hakol yiyeh naki v'zach. Everything is going to be pure. V'yu hashpaot atzumot v'tovot gedolot. There's going to be tremendous hashpaot coming from above. Sharei b'gemar mevuar shemishachara beit HaMikdash kol yom kilolato meruba mishal chaveiro. It says that after the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash, every day's curse is going to be bigger than the day before. The kivan she'aklala tipasek, but now, right, when Moshe Mashiach, there's not going to be any more klala. Tivo shel ha'olam yishtaneh v'yitrapeh. The world is going to become changed and become healed. Ba'ofan sheyemot HaMashiach yaviu et ha'olam el tachlit olam haba. Whereas Yemot HaMashiach are there, it's a dynamic situation. It's a situation where the world will become more and more spiritual. There'll be more and more connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Right? And that's what's going to be happening in the Yemos HaMashiach, because this will bring us to a greater degree of Ruchnius, and that degree of Ruchnius will ultimately lead into a kind of otherworldly existence where the bodies will become vaporized or become next to nothing. They won't be important anymore because of the greatest spiritual dimension. But that's a process. It's a gradual process. It's not something that's going to happen in a moment. Not bin rega that we change from the gross physical reality that we're into some kind of rarefied spiritual olam haba. That's not going to happen, right? It's going to happen through a transition of Yemos HaMashiach. Okay, and that's a key point to what Ramosh is going to tell us about the whole idea that we were learning about the kates, about how it's satum and chatum. It's all covered up, and it's all something that we can't know for sure. But let's see weiter. HaKetz mofia ba'olam b'makor el yom elam. V'zeh so, right? The Ketz comes into the world from a source which is Elyon, which is above everything. V'ne'elam, and it's hidden. V'zeh sod inyano shel HaKetz. So now, this is the key paragraph. Mitzad echad HaKetz hu nekudat hitgalut shel Yemot HaMashiach kan ba'olam. On the one hand, right, the Ketz is the point where there will be a revelation of the Yemos HaMashiach in this world. Right? In this world, kan ba'olam, right? One day we're going to wake up and we're going to see there's going to be a Melech HaMashiach who's going to be revealed, and it's going to happen in this world that we live in right now. Umitzad zeh, haketz poel kechelek miseder hazmanim shel metziut haolam. The Ketz is part of the order of the Zmanim. Right? There's creation, there's Torah, right? And we know that Chazal told us that there's 2,000 years of Tohu, 2,000 years of Torah, 2,000 years of Mashiach. It's part of the system that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world. It's part of the time, the talich of time. Umeidach, on the other hand, hitgaluto v'hofato shel haketz bepoal, the revelation, the manifestation of the Ketz befoal, in actuality, eina yechola lavo mitoch ha'olam minei ubei. It can't emerge from the world, just the world, what the world has to offer. It can't come out of the world. Ella, and here's the key phrase, nimshechet mitoch metziut olam haba. It's something where, because there is a reality of olam haba, so then, right, that somehow that reality will, the glow of that reality, the rays of that reality will enter into this world, which is going to be the times of the Mashiach. In other words, we're going to be looking at a in-between state where the Ketz is coming out of this world, emerging from this world, but it's but it's got to be different enough and connected enough to Olam Haba that the Olam Haba brings it, that shines it into our world. V'remez l'davar u'mashem matzanu b'hilchos reshuyos, we find in Hilchos Shabbos, is skufa mishameshek ishtei reshuyot, that there's a kind of a middle ground between a Reshus HaYachid and Reshus HaRabim, that it could be both Reshus HaYachid and Reshus HaRabim, because it can be it can double in both situations, meaning that the Yemos HaMashiach is both Olam Hazeh and Olam Haba. Right? It's not that it's neither Olam Hazeh or Olam Haba, it's both of them together. It's a combination. Kachu gam inyan haketz, mitzad echad hu patuach le'olam. It's open to our world. She'elachri yemot HaMashiach mitgalim, hem nefachim liot chelek miseder olam. Right? Okay, here he's saying that after the Yemos HaMashiach, there's going to be revelation of the Seder of the Olam Haba. אבל מצד שני, הקץ נמשך ומופיע בעולם מתוך הסדר, I got it backwards, excuse me. ולאחר שמות המשיח מתגלים, הם הופכים להיות חלק מסדר העולם. Once the Moshiach Mashiach are revealed, they're going to be part of the Seder of this world. We're going to see it as an extension of this world. That's how we're going to see it. Aval mitzad sheni, but from the other hand, haketz nimshach umofia ba'olam mitoch haseder hanelam shalom haba. But it's drawn and it appears in the world out of mitoch. It emerges from the seder, that hidden seder of olam haba. Ubepan hazen, in this aspect, it galut shel haketz hu behelem kedugmat olam haba. So we're talking about the revelation of the Kates is something which, right, is the Kates is that middle ground, right? That it has aspects of Olam Hazeh, has aspects of Olam Haba, and this is going to explain why it's impossible to exactly write what the Kates is going to be, because this Kates is, on the one hand, it's going to be part of the Seder of this world. And when it happens, we will see it. Oh, it's a progression. It happened, right? It came out of the history of this world. The history of the world progressed to the Kates. But on the other hand, it's going to be something where it can't come out of the history of the Kates of this world on its own, because this world doesn't have in it that potential to create this middle ground between the two. So it's going to be that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is opening up, right, some kind of gateway to the Olam Haba, where the light of Olam Haba will shine into our world as well. So since we have to deal with both, that's going to explain, as we'll see, right, this middle ground of the Divrei Torah of the Kates. So he says as follows: Umuvan hatam, right? Now we understand. Madu mitzad echad haKates nichtav b'Torah. On the one hand, right, the Kates is written in the Torah. Umitzad sheni unichtav b'ofen kol kach nelam. And why is it written? On the one hand, it's written in the Torah, in the Ksuvim, it's written in Sefer Daniel. And on the other hand, it's written in a way which is completely hidden. We can't know. Ki haKates tzarich liot katuv. Right? It has to be written. In other words, it's something as opposed to Olam Haba, as we saw earlier. Olam Haba can't be written because it has no shaykhus to. It has no shaykhus to this world, and this world is the hitgalut of the Torah of this world is the Torah of the Torah that we have is the Torah of this world. So the Kates has to be written because it's part of this world. Mishum she'olav mechayev she'akates ve'yeshua yitgalu b'olam. The world, in other words, the existence of the world requires that there will be a Kates and a Yeshua. There will be an end, and there will be a salvation in the world. Right? Because that's the way God created the world. That God created the world not for the purpose, chas v'sholem, that the world should just continue to, right, spin out of control, degenerate, and move into something where there will be no hope and no end. Right? No, the Baruch Hu created the world in order that the world should reach its perfection, right? And He left it up to us to try to bring it about. But Baruch Hu said that if you don't bring it about, if you don't succeed in bringing it about, so then there will be a Kates, right? In any event, it's got to happen. It can't be that there's going to be that God created the world in such a way that will not lead to its ultimate fulfillment, its ultimate shleimus. So the world has to have in it some kind of mechanism which will lead to the Kates, because it's part of the world. The Kates is part of the world. There has to be a mechanism which will lead to the Kates. Avol mitzad sheni. But on the other hand, lo yitachen legalot et haKates b'ofen barur v'galui. But it's not possible to reveal this Kates clearly, openly. Mishum shekol tarich barur, right? Harei hu nemad mitoch sidrei olam. Because any clear date, somebody tells you the year 2029, right? Whatever, Tafshin Pei Test, right? A couple of years down the road. Somebody will say, it's signed, sealed, and delivered. It's going to be on that year. No, right? Because any date puts it squarely, right, into the Seder of the world. But the Kates can't come from within the Seder of the Olam. Because there's no process which can lead to the Kates. Okay. Here we go. So we have to try to understand what he's saying here. And you can ask a question too. But here, what he's saying is that the olam is mechayev that there be a case. The olam there has to be a case, and there has to be something which there are processes which will lead to the case, but the processes can't lead to the case on their own. So we can't fix a date because a date means that we're putting it in this world and without reference to what's coming in the next world from the olam haba. And that's something which will over specify and over connect the Moshiach Mashiach with the processes of this world. Right? So he says, there's no process in the world that says this process must lead to the case. No such thing. Right? There are many, the case will come out of a process from this world, but we can't say that this process must lead to the case. It's going to be revealed from a much higher source. Out of the existence, the reality of Olam Haba, Shelo Nizkar b'Torah, which is not mentioned in the Torah, and it can't. So therefore, so it's not a chelik of Torah. Right? That which is dependent upon Olam Haba is not a chelik of Torah, because Torah, as we said before, only reveals things which are in this world. Because Baruch Hu looked in the world and created this, and the Torah created this world. L'chein haketz, af al pi shenichtav, hu nichtav ba'ofen shelo nitan lahotzi mimenu zman hanogeh l'seder olam. It's written, but despite the fact that it's written in such a way that we can't we can't extract from the writings, right, a zman which is solidly fixed in the Seder of Olam Hazeh. Right? So it's got to be elusive in terms of, right? I can't say that it's going to happen, right, from the processes of Olam Hazeh. Right? It's going to take some kind of an Olam Haba thing, but an Olam Haba by definition can't be written because it's not Torah. Olam Haba is beyond the Torah, so it can't be written. So it's got to be written in such a way that you will need to, right, as much as you study it, as much as you try to learn it, you will not be able to, right, get a hold of it, right, to pin it down, because you're trying to pin down something which is beyond our abilities to reach. Yeah. That's the Seder Hadvarim that Ramesh is saying. Yeah, Jerry, one question?
Yeah, but we spoke earlier about how we're encouraged and Gedolim have done the calculation
Okay, so let's see.
of the days.
Yeah, good. That's coming up. Next page.
Coming up.
Yeah,
yeah.
Coming up. Right. Now we're going to tie it back to that. Okay, so let's move on. Why is the Mashiach coming dafka b'esach hadas when we're not looking, when we're not expecting him? Klomar, haketz b'mahuto hu le'olam lo chelek me'atalich shel seder olam. Right? The ketz in its essence is not part of the process of the Seder Olam. Right? There's nothing that we can figure out that this is going to lead to Mashiach, that this is the process. Right? Because there's no process which, right, in this world which will of necessity lead to it. That's why it says that the three things that have come through Hesach Hadas, right? Like, and one of them is Olam Haba, one of them is the Mashiach, and one of them is Mitzia. Haba Tami B'Afta. It's always a surprise. Mitzias are surprises. It's just like a Mitzia doesn't come out of your reality, right? You're involved in one thing, right? And you find the Mitzia, right? You're walking down the street and you find the Mitzia, right? Okay, that's it, right? Okay, and so just like the Mitzia is not something which emerges from anything that you were involved with, right? Because there's no process that can lead to a Mitzia, right? The guy's going the beachcomber and he's trying to find Mitzia, so that's not a Mitzia. He's occupied and looking for something that, because he knows that there's certain things that you can find if you look in different places. But if a real Mitzia is something that there's no process to get us there. So that's what Mashiach is, right? There's no process in this world which we can say, I can foresee and predict that this is going to lead us to Mashiach, right? וכך גם המשיח בא מקור עליון ונעלם ולא מתוך המציאות כאן. Mashiach comes from a source which is above, right, transcended, hidden, and not from our reality. So so there are processes, the world requires it, so this is the double edge, right? The world requires that there must be a Mashiach, right? There's got to be processes which will lead, which are going to take us in the direction of Mashiach. But on the other hand, right, there's no way to ascertain what that process is, because the processes come from a source which we can't fathom, which we can't relate to. So we got to say it's going to come, right? Mashiach is going to come, but from where? Right? We have no way of knowing how the process is going to unravel. How it's going to unfold, I should say. Okay, that's the thing. So let's see. Now he's going to relate this back to Torah.
Question?
Yeah.
So I'm coming in the middle. All of you have been part of this process. So how does this understanding, this knowledge, what do we do with it? How does it connect to us? What are we supposed to, how do we internalize it?
We're not. Let's first see what it says. Okay, okay. Listen, we gotta. Let's see what it says. As you say, this is already the third year in this particular topic.
Right.
Okay. Okay. So let's a little patience. Okay. Okay. I mean, you can. I mean, one of the things that you could ask on Moshe's shiur and Bechlal, yeah. I mean, Moshe's teaching us reality. He's teaching us truth. But let's move on. Chishuv HaKetz, Torah b'tziruf Emunah. Okay, so now what is Chishuv HaKetz? So it's a different type of Torah. Okay, this is where Moshe is going to make clear to us that the Chishuv HaKetz is a different type of Torah than all other learning Torah. It's Torah b'tziruf Emunah. It's joined together with Emunah. It's not the same type of learning that we have in other areas of Torah, and we'll speak it up. Kol ha-kitzin heim Torah. All the kitzim that exist, meaning everything that we learn from the parshas, what the Ramban's kates and the other kitzim that we see, right? They're all Torah. Right? There is a person who's mekayim, right? When the Ramban, right, for instance, or the Barbanel or the Malbim or whoever it was, right, sat and calculated the kates, right? He was osek in Torah. Right? It wasn't chas v'sholem bittul Torah. Right? This is a limud of Torah, even when they were mistaken, and dafka because it was to be expected that they would be mistaken, because it would be expected that something, or not expect that, or I shouldn't say expected, but it's totally not surprising that they're mistaken, because that's the situation, right? But so he says, it's a special mahalach of divrei Torah, right? It's a special way of presenting divrei Torah. מתחייב מזה שיש גם אופן מיוחד של לימוד Torah. Okay? So if it's a special type of divrei Torah, it means that it needs to be learned in a special way. Whatever, when we're talking about the sugi of kates, right? It's a different method of learning. Key, and here he tells us something which is a yesod, which we should be aware of. Ki hinei b'chol divrei Torah hitchadesh malach she'HaKadosh Baruch Hu mitnaheg lefi svaratam uperusham shel chachmei Torah shebal peh. Okay, all divrei Torah, right? All divrei Torah, right? It works in a mahalach of that HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs the world lefi, according to the svara and the perush of the Torah, of the chachmei Torah shebal peh. Okay. Again, let's say as a famous example. I mean, this is related to the Parshas of Shavua, for Parshas Bo, HaChodesh Zelachem, right? The chidushim of the Torah. But as the famous, just to mention the most one of the most famous examples of how God runs the world, right, through the psak of the chachmei Torah shebal peh, right, and that is what the Yerushalmi says, that we know that a girl who is less than 3 years old, right? If she's nivelet, if someone has had relations with a man, so betuleha chozrim. Kach katuv in the Gemara that before the age of 3, it's not considered to be a significant act, and the betuleha chozrim. Okay, if after the age of 3, right, then the betulim are not going to chozer. So what happens if, right, somebody was it was the month of Adar, and they had relations with a 3-year-old girl who was over the age of 3. Right? Her birthday was in Adar, right? And she was over the age of 3, so ein betuleh chozrim, because it's over the age of 3. And then the Beis Din was me'aber the shana, they made a leap year, right? So now her birthday is pushed off a month. Right? Says Chazal, right? That betuleh chozrim, right? Because right, the rabbis are hachodesh hazel lachem. We're in charge, right? We determine the reality, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs the world, runs the physical world in the way according to the way the rabbi said it, and it's also the interpretations of the Torah. We know lo b'shamayim he, right? We know the Tanur Shel Achnai that Rabbi Eliezer had his interpretation, and the Chachamim, and he brought the Baskol, and he brought the river, and he brought the walls falling in, and they say lo b'shamayim he, right? God runs the world the way we see it, okay? And how we see it is that's a koach the Chachamim have in the regular Torah. Right? The Torah that's gluya, when the rabbis decide that this is the way it is, right? Then this is the interpretation of the Torah. That becomes the interpretation of the Torah. Okay? However, okay, that's just a couple of examples of what Ramesh is talking about. Omnam zedavka bedivrei Torah mefurashim. That's only in divrei Torah which are mefurash. Again, meaning they were said to be understood explicitly. Now, it could be that they were said to be understood explicitly, but different way. The Chachamim can have a disagreement about it, right? Sometimes some people can say tamei and some people can say tohar, but it's based on, right, ideas which were given to us as clear ideas. Right? Could be that we don't understand them so properly, or there's different ways of understanding them, but the ideas were meant to be clear. The divrei Torah mefurashim. Shebahem nitan hakoach lechachmei Torah. There's a typo here. Lechachmei Torah shebal peh, right? Likboat perush haktuvim lefi chachmatam. They can say this is what the psukim mean, right? According to their chachma. Okay, and that's something that we all have to be aware of. That there's a special koach of the chachamim. Ulam, however, hadivrei Torah shel haketz stumim v'chatumim, which means ve'ein koach biyad chachmei Torah likboa perush b'ktuvim. The chachmei Torah can't tell you this is the pshat. That's what it means. They're chatumim v'chatumim, right? That means that since they are, as we said before, since they're coming from a source which is not subject to Torah, right? Because there's an olam haba thing, which is something that the Chachamim have absolutely no control over. Chachamim are only given control over olam hazas things, right? So on the one hand, the divrei Torah of the Kates have an element of olam haza because the Kates is going to be part of the olam haza, but on the other hand, there's something that they can't. So because of this middle ground, right? So it's something. So the divrei Torah have to be a middle ground kind of a Torah. It's a kind of Torah which I'm going to tell you, but you'll never figure it out. Or it's going to be, because I'm not going to tell you, there's not enough information in the clear things that I'm going to tell you that you'll be able to figure out because of it comes from another source. V'lachein, af al pi, shebiyad chachmei HaTorah u'b'chovotam lilmod v'lahasig ma she'yocholim lahasig b'bira ktuvim, even though, right, it's in the hands of the Chachmei Torah, and it's their obligation. It's part of Torah to learn and to understand as much as they can about what the psukim mean, right? The psukim that describe the Kates. V'sham divrei Torah v'shem divrei Torah chal al kol divreihem, and whatever they said, that's called divrei Torah, right? They're involved in the Esek Torah. Im kol zeh, nevertheless, with all that, etzem hakatuv nishar lemala miperusham. What's written is beyond their explanations. Their explanations can't capture the full meaning of the Ketuvim. Okay? In other areas of the Torah, what the explanations become the meaning of the Ketuvim, right? Because the Ketuvim and the Chachamim are put on the same level, right? The level of the Chachmei Torah Shapell Peh is right. Hakadosh Baruch Hu gives the koach to them to say this is what the Torah Shebichtav means, right? Right, and it doesn't matter whether what HaKadosh Baruch Hu originally meant when he gave the Torah in the first place or not, or did he, right? Because he gave it all das so the Torah can be grasped fully, and whatever the Chachamim say, that becomes the Perush HaKtuvim. But in the area of the Kates, the Perushim do not become the meaning of the Ktuvim. Right? The Ktuvim are above, right? The Tamid, Al Kol Etzem HaKatuv Nishal the Tamid Yira'eh Ech Shekalul B'Chtav B'Katuv Od V'Od Perushim Ketzim. Right? And you'll be able to find more. In other words, it's implicit in the way that the Torah is. These psukim are written. That you'll be able to find other perushim and other kitzim. Right? They're written in such a way that it'll always be elusive. Right? Right? Until the time comes, right? There's always going to be the possibility of figuring things out, but it's becoming an elusive kind of a thing. And that's what he means, right? He says there's two things: there's kitzim and ketz haplaot, right? As we discussed. V'zeh inyan shel kolu kol kitzim shekad Rabban sheish kitzim arbei. The Rabban says there are many kitzim, meaning I don't know. Right? There are many kitzim. What does that mean? There are many kitzim. Ki mitzad ma she'amarnu sheketz muchrach mitzad ha'olam, that the world must have a ketz. As yesh be'emet kol minei mahalchim shemachachim et haketz. There's all different possibilities of what could lead us to the Kates. Okay, you can look around you and you can say, the process of I don't know, the Holocaust leads us to the Kates. You can look around you and say the process of people doing tshuva, right? There's a tshuva movement that can lead to the Kates. You can look around you and say that that Trump bombing Iran, if that happens which. Nobody knows what's going to happen, but that's going to lead to the Kates, right? There's all kinds of things that we could say. Oh, this is right. We're living in, as we say, in Moshiach times. We're living in the Moshiach times, right? I see the process of it. There's different possibilities. Okay, that's what it means. There's different kitzim. It means that you could hop onto one of them and say, this is going to be the way to the Kates, right? Because the Kates is as mukhrach, as chayav to be. The world requires it to be a Kates. Right? As yesh be'emet kol minei malchim shulchem at the Kates. Umitzad zeh yesh harbei cheshbonot shel Kates, and that's why if you look on the psukim, you can say that we're talking about the year 1050 or 1250 or 1650 or whatever year you want to set it, not whatever year, but there's all kinds of ways to interpret the psukim which will be consistent with mahalchim of the Kates that could be, and so they're going to be real expressions of the Kates. Right? V'chol echad mehakitzin alalu yesh lo geder shel divrei Torah. It's all divrei Torah. It's all ways of figuring out that there's a certain mahalach which will lead to the Kates in this way. Umeidach, but on the other hand, kiven she'haketz atzmo tzarich lavo milamala. The Kates doesn't come out of this world, but it comes from above. There's no cheshbon which is going to tell us the Kates flow, that final end when it's got to come. We said there's going to be possibilities of coming, and there's going to be ways of coming. And as the Ramosh is going to remind us the last words of this year, that he could come any day, right? Without any cheshbon, right? Could be, right? So, but on the other hand, the Kates HaPla'ot comes from a completely different dimension of existence, something which is totally beyond our ability to have any concept of, and so therefore, it's going to be disappointing. It's going to be it's going to be a lechazev. It's going to be false, right? In other words, okay, it doesn't have to be false, but it's quite likely we shouldn't be surprised if the cheshbon doesn't work out, because the cheshbon is only taking into account, right, how to get from where we are, how we're going from where we are to where we want to get, but it's not taking into account how where we want to get is going to meet us somewhere in the middle, right, or where from there. Right. I just thought of a little bit of a muscle, again, maybe a very simple muscle. Yeah, I mean, I was once read when I was a kid about how when they were building the railroads through the Rocky Mountains, right, and they were tunneling from both sides, right, from the east and from the west, right, and it was a tremendous accomplishment that they met. Right? That the two tunnels met. It was like wow, it was a tremendous engineering accomplishment, right? But I'm just saying this: we're going from the east to the west, right? We know what we're doing, right? But we got to know that there's something else coming from the other side, and that something which is coming from the other side is unknowable, right? So we know where we're going, or we know from where we're going and how we're going, and we want to know where we want to get to, but the other side is not knowable, right? So we can say, well, we'll try this, or this, it could be this way, it could be that way, but at the end of the day, we're going to be up in the air and not know this. So this is the idea that Rav Moshe is saying. This is the chiddush of Rav Moshe here in this whole shir. The chiddush is that because of the nature of Yemos HaMashiach as being a kind of halfway point, a transition point between the two ksavot, between the two extremes of Olam Hazeh and Olam Haba, right? So it partakes of the nature of both, and because it partakes of the nature of both, the Divrei Torah have to be something which, on the one hand, is shaykh to Olam Hazeh, because, right, but on the other hand, since the Torah of Olam Haba, as we said before, doesn't exist, there is no Torah which represents Olam Haba, because Olam Haba is beyond Torah, so then, right, it's got to be a type of Torah which, on the one hand, is there, but on the other hand, isn't there. Right? Now you see it, now you don't. Okay, and that's the thing. Okay. V'zema, that's where we got to, right? V'zema shemuvor b'psukim b'Daniel, shebechol zman shebo mitbarer she'aketz lo haya nachon. Every time that it'll be clear that the case that we figured it wasn't correct, etzem hachishuv she'aya, the fact that you made the calculations, hu mashem oreret ha'emunah v'tzipiyah l'ketz amiti. This is what's going to arouse the emunah and the expectations for the ketz amiti, right? That's the that in other words, it awakens us to the emunah of right, because we're so involved with it. And as we said earlier, right, we're thinking about it. We're trying to figure it out. Right? It's like the mashal that Rav Moshe said earlier, right? Your some best friend of yours, your favorite cousin or something, is going to be arriving on a train, and you don't know which one, and you're just going to wait. You got to calculate all the things. Oh, he's going to come at 9 o'clock. He's going to come at 10 o'clock. He's going to come at 11 o'clock, right? When's he going to come, And I'm just waiting and expecting. And it's such an important thing in my life that he's going to be there, right? That he's coming. And I know he's going to come, right? So, right? Somebody who doesn't care, Seder, whenever he shows up, he'll show up, right? Okay? Guy will knock on my door. Okay, Seder, I'll say, I'll be happy to see him, right? But anybody who's had the experience of waiting for a beloved person, when is he going to come and when is, right? And then that's some involvement with going to come in this day, come in that day, come in this hour, come in that hour. That enhances our tzipiyah. And one of the most important things that Rabbi Moshe has told us, right, again, we learned it back in Rei Amuna, right, is that Moshiach Right? The important element the most important element for us is that we have to be mechake. Achake lo b'chol yom shiyovo. We have to, right? The Mashiach is going to come and is going to be significant for the people who waited for him. They're going to appreciate him, and that's going, and they're going to be affected by him. Right? There's going to be lots of people outside the orbit that are not going to be so directly involved, so directly affected by Mashiach. It's the right, as we say in Yigdal. Right? We say, right, those of us who say Yigdal in the morning, right? Lifdot mechake ketz Yeshuasa. Right? Okay. The Mashiach is going to come. Yishlach leketz yamim mishichenu. Right? Lifdot mechake ketz Yeshua. So to redeem the mechakim. Right? Achake lo. Right? Right? Achake lo shebchol yom yom. That's what the pasuk says. We'll see it right away. The pasuk in Chabakuk. Right? Im yitmamea chakelo. Right? You have to. Right? That's the tzipiyah. Right? And the tzipisa leMashiach. That's one of the foundations of our emunah. Is not that just that he's going to come. Right? That there will be a Mashiach. Right? But that we wait longingly, and we know that there must be such a that the world as it is a false world, is a world that can't exist, that can't continue to exist. It's right. It's going to have to self-destruct in some way if things don't get if things keep on going that way, and so that's the thing. So that's what he says. Etzem. Let me read that sentence again. Etzem hachishuv shehaya, the calculation that was, hu ma she'ma'orer et ha'amunah ve'tzipiyah leketz amiti. This awakens us, this arouses us, and we say, oh, right. So again, the point is, mishum she'inyan ha'ta'ut kan hu lo machmad chisaron b'shiklat avodah shel ha'lomed. The fact that a mistake was made was not because the one who was learning made a miscalculation, made a mistake. No. In other words, his cheshbonos were correct, meaning if somebody of sufficient stature, right, the Ramban or somebody like that, sat down and made calculations, right, they were well grounded, right. So he wasn't like he made an arithmetic mistake, He said, or it wasn't that he completely had no clue about what was going on. No, they were well grounded, and it was a cheshbon, right. So it's not because of a mistake. Ella, right? The reason that it was that it didn't happen the way he said it was going to happen, mitzad hashaychut shel divrei Torah halal makom gavoa yoter. It's because these divrei Torah belong, right, are shayach. They belong in another realm altogether. Mitfisat hadat, something gavoa yoter mitfisat hadat, something beyond what the das can grasp. B'kasher halomed makir b'shaychut hayelna azot. And when he knows that I am learning something which is so high that I don't have the means to get to grasp it in its totality, I really want to know, right? There's more that we're so far from it because we don't study Sefer Daniel, and we don't sit down with a pencil and paper, and we have and all the strange words that are there. A time and a half a time, and we have no clue. So we have no clue, the Seder. So I think that I personally have not involved myself in these learning, and I think I'm potter. I'll stick with Masechet Ksuvos. That's more what something that I have a more hope of understanding, right? But that's only because of how far we are from the whole involvement with these tremendously spiritual things, right? But somebody would get involved, right? His involvement would only arouse his expectation, and he says, I understand. I have some Havana. And I have some that this could be the right cheshbon. It makes sense. It fits in with how I understand what the words mean, right? And it should lead me to this conclusion, right? And therefore, I'm strengthening my connection to this whole thing by becoming so involved with it, right? So Adarab, instead of it becoming a source of frustration, that's what Moshe will talk about, right? And it's Mashiach. If he didn't come by this date, so maybe the whole thing isn't going to happen. But Adrabah, right? It's the involvement is because of the heshek for it and the desire for it. Umemela, chelek bilti nifra b'divrei haTorah shel kates, something which is a chelek which is inseparable. It's part of the divrei Torah. It's that hope and expectation that they create. In other words, the point of the Chish of Divrei Torah is not merely as an intellectual exercise, but it's to strengthen our connection to the concept, right? And it's going to just say, I'm going to get involved with it and see that this is something which could happen it could happen in this year, could happen in that year, right? Right? If this cheshbon will lead me, my cheshbon will lead me to a certain conclusion. Right. Because they're going to see that these are things that they're so high that I'll be able to see that I can't grasp them. Right? And that will create a cheshek for me to wait, when's it going to happen so I'll be able to grasp it? Right? Because I know that when it happens, then I'll be able to put all the pieces together. Right? I know that when Moshiach comes, I'll be able to, right, when we're going to read Sefer Daniel, it's going to be like an open book, right? And everybody's going to say, oh, how come I didn't think of that, right? Oh, that's the pshat, that was such a good pshat, that's the pashtus of what's going on. Why did I get involved in all kinds of convoluted calculations, right? Right? But that's what we're going to know, right? And that's right. In other words, again, even when we learn when we learn Gemara, right, we learn for instance, right? Somebody who learns and sees a certain level of depth in what he's learning, right? But he senses that there's something beyond it, right? He senses that I've gotten I've gotten 2 steps in. But I see there's 3 steps and 4 steps and 5 steps. And every time I open the door, there's another whole room with, treasures, and I got to go, there's another door and another door. You sense that, but you don't, sometimes we don't get, you can't get as far as what we sense is there, but we know there's something beyond, and that something beyond, right, gives us a cheshek to understand more. Or when we think about the way God runs the world, right? We sense that there's something going on here that we don't know, but I want to know more and more. But so it's when we have a lack of understanding, right, and we know that lack of understanding is due to that there's a world beyond what our tiny, minuscule understanding can get, right? Because of human beings at the end of the day are very, very small specks, right, in terms of the divine wisdom. Right? Then I have a cheshek to know more. Right? Wow, if I can grasp a little bit, wow. Look how beautiful it is. I want to get more. So the same thing that he's talking about, if I can describe, I get something about this Kates, and I see that's so deep and something so hidden. I want to see more and more. Okay. And this is the pasuk in Habakkuk. Ki od chazon lamoed. There is further chazon, further visions to the time. V'yafeach laketz. Yafeach will be translated. Will speak about the kates. V'lo yichazev, and it will not be false. Im yitmamea chakelo. This is the right. This is where the Rambam got the not the Rambam the formulation of the Ani Mamin. Right. Afal pisha yitmamea chakelo. If he will be delayed, chakelo. Kivo yavo. He will come. Lo yacher. He will not be late. He'll not. It won't. The ultimate kates is going to happen. It's not going to be delayed. Uchomoshe katav Rashi Hanal. We quoted this Rashi in Daniel. V'achozeh, right? Nitztava listom v'lachtom adavar. Right? The seer, the visionary, right, was commanded to keep the matter sealed. V'afhu lo nigla ela b'loshon satum v'chatum. And whatever he was revealed was only or whatever revealed to him was also in this sealed and locked language. V'anu, says Rashi, and this is very important for us, right, in case you read, David, you asked before, what do we take away from this? V'anu nochil lahavtachat malkeinu, and we will look, as we translated, ochila, right? We will yearn for, we will wait for, right? We will hope for our king, kates achar kates, one end after another end. There's going to be a lot of kates. Uba'avor kates hadoresh, and when the time of the doresh, the family who darshans the posik, if it passes, nodaki ta'abim midrashav. We know, okay, he didn't get it right. He made a mistake in his drasha. V'habacharav, when the guy coming after him, yatur v'yadrosh derech acheret, he's going to seek out another way. Each one is going to seek out a way. And it says, okay, that was ba'ofen. Shekol again, it's just reminding me of something that's current in the news. Of they're searching for this one last soldier, right, who was hostage, and they haven't found his body yet, right? So what does it mean? But it's kind of similar. We know he's there, right? We know he's there, and we're going to search here. Maybe they have a cheshbon, right? Maybe he's in this. Maybe he's there. And he's not there. So what does that mean? So the intelligence officer, whoever made this cheshbon, says, no, this is a good place to look, right? Okay, so it's a good place to look. They look for him, and he's not there, never. So they got to go back. And so there's another good place to look. Another good place to look. And today I read in the paper that they have there's cautious optimism. That's the word that they use, right? What that means exactly, but cautious optimism about they're going to find him. They have a good idea where he is, okay? And if chas v'sholom they don't find him because based on where he is, we know he'll find him, right? That's the hope, and that's the kind of thing that it increases the hope, right? In other words, by saying I'm going to look here, I'm going to look there, that connects me with them, right? If I'm going to say, throw up my hands, right? If we find them, we find them. And if we don't find them, what can we do? But then you're not connected to it, B'chlal. Then B'chlal, it doesn't, right? And so then if you're not connected to Mashiach, so then, as I said before, you're not mechakeh. Then Mashiach is not going to speak to you either. Right? And Mashiach is only going to speak to those who are looking for him. Ba'ofen, shekol achiza shelonu b'inyan haketz, hu rak al yedei smichut dat al Kodesh Baruch Hu. We rely on the Kodesh Baruch Hu. Be'emunah u'b'tzipiyah, with faith and with hope and expectation, shenoladim, which are born out of al yedei hadivrei Torah shel haketz. That's a very beautiful way to end this paragraph, right? That the emunah and the tzipiyah grow out of, they're born out of this divrei Torah shel haketz, right? And then we said, listen, at the end of the day, Kodesh Baruch Hu, we rely on you. You know what you're doing. You know, right? You know exactly what's the time and when it should come, and what's the optimal time, and we're not going to tell you what to do. We're not going. We'll pray that it should come. Right? Right? We pray every day. It's Tzemach David Avdecha Meir Tatzmiach. Right? That's Kodesh Baruch Hu's Matzmiach Keren Yeshua. We pray every Lishuas L'Kivisi Hashem. We pray every day that it should come speedily. Right? But at the end of the day, okay, let's read another few minutes. Right? We're almost done with this year, but okay. Torah, but we won't finish today. But Mitzvah Hashem, next time we'll wind it up. Torah shel smichut dad shel Kodesh Baruch Hu. Haketz chayav liot satum. We need some of words, wrapping up things a little bit. She'etzem haketz chayav liot mefurash b'Torah. It's got to be there because b'bchinat ketz sam lachoshech. I don't know why they put a shin there instead of a sin, but it's supposed to be it's several places in the book that they made the same mistakes. I don't know. I can't figure that one out. But I even went to the trouble of looking up the pasuk, and it is in the Tanakh. It's Sam Lachoshech, Kates Sam Lachoshech. HaKadosh Baruch Hu makes a Kates to the darkness. Okay, that's Chazal famously in Parshas Miketz, Vahi Miketz Nasayim Shana Yamim, right? 2 after 2. So Kates Sam Lachoshech, right? Yosef was in the dungeon. Kates Sam Lachoshech. There's always an end to the darkness, right? There's always room for optimism. Whenever there's a choshech, we know kates sam lachoshech. Anyway, so that's got to be mefurish in the Torah, right? So it's on the one hand it's mefurish, Avol eino yachol liot galui. Right? So there's this, this dichotomy between mefurish and galui. Right? It's not open. It's not revealed. Right? It's there. Right? And I say when we see it, we'll hit our foreheads and say, oh, why didn't I see it? Right? But it's there, but it's not galui. There were kitzim which were more revealed. Ke'ein hadalad me'oshana shel Mitzrayim. Right? Okay, the 400 years, right? Parshas Shavua, right? What did the Bris Ben Absarim, right? Baruch tells Abraham Avinu, Ger Yazarcha Be'ershalem Avonu Avinu Sam Arba Me'shana. Ve'ayin Shana Shel Golus Bavel, 70 years. Avla Ketz Acharon, Kiven Shehu HaYoter El Yom Yoter Pnimi. That's the highest, the most Pnimi, which reaches the essence of the existence of the world. L'chein Hu Lo Yachol Yot Galui B'Shum Ofen. And he says, Ve'amet Shegam Bekitzim Shel Mitzrayim Hu Bavel Hayu Cheshbonot V'Tuyot. Even after the 400 years, people still made mistakes, right? And even after the 70 years, right? He also made a mistake and he miscalculated the 70 years. Whenever there's a case, it can't be too open. There's going to be tests there. It's going to be, do you really trust in God or not? Right? If everything was revealed, right? So then it doesn't take a big bal bitachon to, right? Then it doesn't increase your connection, your reliance on Kodesh Baruch Hu, right? If you know that, in 5 years, the grandfather's trust fund that he left for you is going to be available. Okay, so you don't have to be big bal bitachon. All you do is count the days, right? 5 years. Right? When I reached my 25th birthday, right, my grandfather gave me $100,000. Right? Seder. Okay, that's not bitachon, that's not smicha. So therefore, when you know things in clearly, right, when a date is given, right, then you're not connected with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You're only connected with HaKadosh Baruch Hu if you need to come to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and say, listen, you're the one in control. You're doing it. I have no idea. Could be that I know I'm going to get the $100,000. I have no when, how it's going to happen. Right? Maybe it will happen, maybe soon, maybe it'll happen when I'm 50 years old, maybe, who knows, right? Then I rely on HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Right? You can't look at the calendar. All the dates, right? Today, I don't believe anybody's involved so much in calculating dates anymore. Maybe there are. I don't know. I shouldn't say. We're mityaesh. That's the hesach hadas. I have no idea. We can't lose the amunah. There is a case. Okay, we'll stop here. Amir Hashem we'll finish up. My thinking as of now is that we're going to skip Maimer Yudalid in the book because he goes into the same stuff that we've been talking about for the last 3 weeks in greater detail, bringing other Gemaras and other Cheshbonos in, trying to clarify some points that he felt were not fully satisfied. So I think we'll skip that, unless I change my mind by next week. But that's my thinking now, and we'll go on to other topics. But in any event, that's what we have today. Mr. Hashem will finish up on Sunday, and we should be zeicha that the peace and tranquility in our land. And
first, what's the name of the sefer? What's the name of the sefer?
The name of the sefer is Shurei Perek Chelek. And
how does one purchase it?
All right, purchase it. It's available in bookstores in Israel.
Okay.
In the
also
Feldheim
Eichler's other online places have it as well.
Yeah, you can order online, but anyway, that's Shurei Perek Chelek, Moshe Shapell. Okay, the Seder. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening, everybody. Kol Tuv. Enjoy your snowbound existences back in.
Ran Gvili should be brought home.
What?
Ran Gvili is the name of the chayal they're looking for. Should be
Okay,
brought home.
B'ezrat Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Right, Yerachem Aleim, Yotzia Mitzar L'Ravacha, Me'afei L'Reira,
Amen.
V'Shuba L'Gula.
Amen.
Kol Tuv.
Called
Okay.